Okay, go.
Right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another Build Working Group meeting. So today we have myself, Gibson Farnstock, Michael Dawson, Raphael Ackerman, and Evan. Am I saying it right?
Yeah, it's Evan. Evan. Okay.
Okay, good to know. And Evan. Cool. Welcome. Hope it's interesting. So, first off, I guess we should do who's been doing what. So myself, I did a couple of PRs to document things, and yeah, basically just try and write down some of the sort of implicit knowledge we have in the working group, and yeah, closing down CI, which again is another thing we should document how to do, because I think not many people, and document who can actually do what and then how we should do it.
Yeah, no, that's a great idea, because I know last time I was involved in that, we're kind of like, well, we might just do this, and so that's what we did. But yeah, it would be good to write it down.
Yeah, exactly.
Also, we kind of have a hole there because the CI is closed, but all the SSH keys are still there. So essentially, build group, all the DevOps build group have access to the machines.
Yeah.
Which we need to punt to the Keybase issue.
Yep.
Yeah, although I mean, I think many of the you're saying there is a one of us could go and look at what the security fix is. I don't know. I think we could also do lots of other things. That wouldn't be my top worry.
Yeah.
Other than that, I guess the node automation working group, team, has been the interesting new thing of the thing. I guess we'll come back to that later. That's pretty much me. A bit of maintenance on the other machine. Yeah. Next, Rod.
We're doing stand-up, are we?
Yes.
Okay. Wow. Lots of little things. One of the bigger things is is Packet.net allocated some special machine ARM64 machines for us they've got less memory than their public ones, which is good because there's even these new ones have got way too much memory for us.
Yes, that was huge.
Yeah. Oh, we've given you 32 gigs now.
Yeah, I was thinking, that's a problem.
So, I mean, they've been great, and actually, I really love their technology and their infra. But I've shifted all of our build and release machines over to this new infrastructure. The two Jenkins workspace machines are not included in that because they're not ARM64, so they're just smaller machines, Atom machines sitting on their normal infrastructure. So I did that yesterday. Look, aside from that, just hundreds of little things keeping things afloat. I can't remember anything that is not already on GitHub. Oh, we got the Microsoft Authenticode certificate done. That was a headache to get done, but we've got a 3-year, and I believe Joao has installed it on all the release machines. So that's finally good to go. Another 3 years with the MSI installed.
We got it soft copy, not a device or anything.
Yeah. So I think Joao reached out to DigiCert, and they didn't even know about this thing. So we jumped on a 3-year. And as in the issue there, you saw that Yarn did the same thing when they heard about that. Yeah, it's all good. So no blockers as far as I'm concerned. I think we're in good position now. Oh, actually, no. There is one thing that we've got this problem with. So there was just some discussion earlier about the Node private repo and CI and locking things down. With the Node private test we're testing it in CI. To get all the machines, the nodes to pull from node private, we need an SSH key, and we've got an SSH key conflict, and so Joao and I have been talking about how to resolve this in a way that doesn't undermine general security. And the best currently we can come up with is to turn off the need for, there's a strict two-factor authentication requirement on the new Node private org where that repo is, and turning that off so that we can get this Node CI GitHub user into that org, and it's still got a shared password that the infra people can access. It doesn't have 2FA. So we have to turn that off. That's the best we can do right now. It's just all it is just an unticking a box that requires anyone in that org to have 2FA. But I think we can do that manually. I'll have to take that up with the TSC, but if anyone wants to go into detail on that, let's talk about it on IRC because it's kind of complicated.
For 2FA, you can store the actual generator thing that generates the 2FA thing, and then you can import it into whichever, like Google Authenticator and stuff. Would that be an option?
Yeah, we could, as long as we can do it in a way that's easy enough for multiple people to have access to it. I guess.
Okay.
I guess it's possible.
Yeah, maybe talk about it after.
Yeah. I mean, I'm happy to do that because there's actually a few other resources that'd be good to have 2FA on for our infra. It's just we need to have it shared amongst multiple people.
Right.
Okay, that's it for me.
So, Raphael?
I was also doing the death by 1,000 cuts, a lot of small things here and there, chasing down the CGM on AIX, which hangs all sorts of Git log files hanging around everywhere. I've been a little bit doing triage and cleanup on the repo, and I've been organizing our tasks as such on the project boards. It's easier. You can just look at it and see. I invented everything. Everything's very arbitrary, but I put a column for active incidents, which is gonna.
I've got a tab open now, pinned to that, and I've been using it and organizing and pulling things off. So I don't know if it takes other people. It's going to take more than just you doing it, Raphael. But if we can think about trying to consolidate around that board, it'd be awesome. It's great work, by the way. Thanks for that.
Yeah. So definitely, the first thing that I thought of was that it gives visibility to the other collaborators. If we can broadcast it, and they can see, are there any active incidents? Either something acute, or something like the embargo, or something like SIGINT doesn't work, this and this, or like there's a known huge flake. And I was thinking around all of that, like an easy way to, like status.nodejs.com, like something that the devs can look at and know like what's going on, because there are like, when something happens, a lot of rumors start circulating, like a lot of comments in a million issues. So this is very helpful for everybody. Yeah, obviously everybody has access to the board and set up, put new columns or whatever. That was an interesting sort of thing. I talked with, last meeting we talked about trying to get other new people to volunteer. So initially I got in touch with Seishan and with Chris Lee. They're both not super eager to jump aboard. Chris has a ton of other commitments. But then I did a tweet and we got other people to volunteer to the group, and then the automation team idea picked up really fast, and I see a lot of collaboration potential, and eventually I see some crossover interaction between the two teams as well. A lot of new blood, a lot of new energy, which is also good. That's it for me.
So, Michael?
Okay, sorry, just I gotta flip back to the right window here. Oops, I got too many windows open. Actually, can you skip me and come back to me next?
Sure. Well, I guess, Evan, hi, welcome, thanks.
Hi, thanks.
Uh,
Yeah.
So how
Sure.
did you find us? I guess would be the best first question.
Yeah, Tyree from Node.js tweeted that you were considering to create an automation team, and that's right up my alley. So I figured out like I really want to help Node because I've been using it a lot, and yeah, could just like do a quick introduction of myself, I guess. I'm Evan. I love automation tools. Been working with Webpack and creating the Webpack CLI earlier this year. We're currently in the process of getting that merged into Webpack itself, so we could enhance the user experience. I've been also working with front-end, and I work as a front-end developer part-time while studying informatics. So yeah, that's basically it.
Awesome. Michael?
Okay. So I've been finishing off some Ansible scripts for ZOS, got those landed. Worked on adding an additional ARM6 backup machine and the Ansible script that updates for that. Updating the contributors page for a couple new companies who've been donating. Some cleanup with the help of Rod to avoid rsync problems on the benchmarking machine.
Okay, cool. Let's get straight into it then, because as I said, plenty to look at. So the first one is 705. I put them in order. Issues can be slightly out of date. But anyway, first one is 705, second one down. Investigate a commit queue solution. Raphael, I think you added this to the agenda?
Yeah, so it was an idea I got from the Chromium project. They have a very elaborate setup with Garrett, where essentially PRs are managed in a separate system. They get reviewed, and then only a bot can actually commit land stuff in the tree, and they have a whole terminology around that, and etc. But people referred me to like the prior art done around that, but now that we have the automation team, we can start thinking about the simpler aspects of it, like simple cherry picking that's done from master to the release branches, and do like if it fails, then do the regular please backport this comment, which is like a very simple logic. Maybe later on adding a validation step that metadata is okay, commit message is okay, and later than that, making sure that CI run is actually green, which is we need to pass a couple of blockers before we can get there, but it's a nice idea. And a couple of the people in the automation team really enthusiastic about closing the small technical gaps on the way to that. So I reopened the issue, pointed them at it, and we can start the discussion rolling. Jui wrote a nice CLI tool that is equivalent to Evan's node review extension that extracts and validates metadata. So that's a nice step in that direction.
So
what's for us to discuss is how can we help? How can we, integrate all the knowledge and the prior art and the caveats and the gaps that we have, and communicate that to the automation team, so that they won't need to, dig up and investigate everything from scratch, and see what we know and how we can pass this on and make it, happen smoothly.
Unfortunately, Alexis was the one that was leading this effort primarily, but Joao was heavily involved because they both work at Genet Systems. So you might want to bring on Joao into that discussion. I don't know if he's got much time for it, but him and Alexis did a lot of the work there. I've put a link in the in issue 705, was it, to the job that still exists in Jenkins that did it. But look, just the headaches that we experienced around that were big enough to scare us away from really wanting to dive back in. So exploring new approaches would be a good thing.
A good thing. I think we just didn't have a green enough CI at the time. It's much better, maybe not quite there yet, but I think we're a lot closer to being able to make it work.
Yeah, but I think one of the biggest problems was it has to be exclusive. You have to, once you do this, then it has to be the only way you can land commits.
Yeah, because otherwise it started to, you'd end up with conflicts and whatever,
and so you have to have something that works well enough that it's just not going to make people throw up their hands and say, I can't work with this.
So that's why Miles suggested the release branches, which are already exclusive to Miles, Jameson, and Gibson. So it's a better proof of concept, I think. Definitely than master.
True, and if it's just a matter of validating metadata and making sure that things pass CI, then it's a probably good way to enter into it.
Great. Okay, so that was my main intention to build it here. It's exactly this, to see what are we scared of and where we can help, and I think we got that information.
Sounds good. I guess as long as we're responsive. I mean, Joy created a clone of Node to practice these things on. So if they need any jobs creating, we can set that up, and
Yeah. So what I had in mind that we should maybe have a clone of Jenkins, some sort of a way for people outside of the build group and outside of Jenkins admins to see the jobs, to see the scripts. Because
or we move to pipelines and do them in Groovy and GitHub.
Yeah, but that's a pipe dream.
But for
new stuff, it shouldn't be hard.
Yeah.
yeah.
I would like to say, let's have a job that will run the pipeline, and then people can PR to it. And if we could have a way of testing PR, like the way that we currently have the code, if we could have a way to do that with Jenkins pipelines, that would be a great way to go. And we'll see. I mean, if it all falls apart, then we'll have to fall back to something else. But yeah, I'd like to try that as a solution.
Sure. Okay. I think everybody is happy to progress. I just want to see how we do it with with minimal blockers and without overcommitting to migrating a bunch of
No, migration.
So I don't think you're not going to find any objections here. I think the only advice that I can pass on from the previous experience is any increase in friction for collaborators is going to cost dearly, cost the effort. So whatever happens, it needs to make sure that it's either decreasing friction or not changing the amount of friction to getting code landed. Because if it increases it, then the backlash will be big enough to potentially scupper the whole effort.
Wrote down, underlined with the lines.
Okay, cool. So let's move on to the next one. 873, temp dir needed on Ubuntu 16 and Fedora. So the reason this was raised it was raised last time, but I think we didn't have that many people on the call. Was that basically Miles saying no one's run this Ansible script in a month, or whatever number of months it was. Guys, this is symptomatic of a larger issue. My opinion is that the larger issue is that I don't think anyone is completely confident in running Ansible scripts across a wide variety of machines. That won't, destroy things. Certainly not many people. So
and also the Ansible scripts were written to do very specific jobs, which is like set up a completely new machine or such. For instance, you can't run them. You can't run the current Ansible scripts on all machines because they all require Kin's handshake secret.
That's true. Yep.
So you need to like mine it first, or you need to like build a new. So I started like taking apart the.
You can use tags though. That's one way to make it, to atomize it, is that you run all the scripts and then you just run a tag, and the tag might be make tempter, and it just does that. That's possible. But my assessment of this issue, and one reason I'd like it to stay open for now for discussion, is goes back to the how to prioritize and surface things that need doing. I see that as the biggest problem that was raised there. That we don't have a good queue for work, and I think Raphael's work on the GitHub project is fantastic, because in doing that he surfaced a couple of things that I could tick off that I wasn't even aware of. So the only problem with that is making sure that everybody knows how to do it and contributes to it. Otherwise, things will get lost. Because if that thing was in that queue and we had that queue before, and it was high enough priority, then it might have been taken care of a lot quicker.
I get it, but when Miles, for example, isn't comfortable running like Miles is a senior build member, right? He's been working with it for a good while.
Right.
And I kind of thought, I'm relatively new, and yeah, okay, I'm not that comfortable with it. But I kind of wonder who is that comfortable.
Well, I think the issue is like that specific issue is our Ansible scripts are not in the state that they should be, right? We're sort of halfway between. In some cases, we're halfway between moving them over, and we don't necessarily run them regularly enough that we're comfortable to say, okay, yeah, let's destroy our working. If we're going to set up a new one, they're good enough. But if you're going to destroy our only existing working ones, that's where the level of comfort isn't there, right?
Yeah.
And I don't know what else we can do other than try and improve that, like complete the transition. And then, I don't know how we'd afford the level of effort to do it, but like if we regularly use them to create new machines, you'd have a higher level of confidence, right?
Yes, so I think the issue is a combination of the two. If we had visibility and priority for the original issue, actually was solved with a workaround, then we could have come up with a workaround sooner, or done the work manually if it was important enough, and it raised the issue that our automation tools are not mature enough, which is so it's a combination of the two. Everybody's doing what they feel comfortable, and not necessarily the things that were most urgent or most important. And that's why I think that they should stay open until, at least our clients, the other collaborators, feel that the team is robust enough that, like Rod said, the friction that we're causing is minimal.
Yeah,
Stuff doesn't get stuck in the build group.
Yeah, I mean that's the most scathing criticism from that is of our ability to react to important issues, and our ability to even discern what's important and what's active, because there's lots of miscommunication there. There's not a perception of how important this thing was, and that's the most scathing assessment of.
Yeah, I think in the end it wasn't even clear that it was kind of an irritant that Miles remembered once a month, so it wasn't actually his most burning priority either. But I think it's a very fair statement that we didn't have a good way of sort of highlighting what wasn't.
And I think as a learning lesson, right now we have Miles raised an issue that again, CGM jobs are failing on a couple of platforms. But now at least I know where to look, and I can see its visibility. And we know that out of 4 active incidents, or 4 active broken stuff, one of them is that CGM is not covering because of infrastructure and not because of code breakage, and it's on us to mitigate it. And so I think we have learned. We need to keep an eye on them and make sure the board doesn't rot, and communicate to other people that they can add issues, that they can reorder issues, etc. So we have this visibility.
Maybe, Raphael, maybe a task here is to put this at the top of our README, instructions on how to do it and how to look at it and how to add to it.
Yeah, and I think we should even encourage people to volunteer to help out too.
Sure.
Because just because people put it on the board doesn't mean we're going to magically be able to do everything.
Yeah, but for instance, this requires access to actual machines, etc. So again, Keybase, allowing temporary intermittent access to machines, or all that. Everything of that is an enabler for us to be able to provide our clients with better service.
Any more on that? Okay, so go straight on. Next one is 879. A certain node can be compiled with static or dynamic libraries.
Again, that's me. That's just one of those that is a little bit important, not too urgent, so it gets pushed back.
So this is kind of similar to the Without International one that kind of had some interest recently, right? Yeah, my feeling here was we should just have another thing we run in every CI that just runs on one platform, all the major things, shared library, Without International, without SSL, whatever these options are, maybe OpenSSL 1.1.
Yeah, but for this we want to run on we want a clone of Node.js Commit. We want to run it on all platforms because everybody, there's a ton of people using the static library, and there was one blocker that was, I think it landed, was Daniel wrote, found a way to link node_main to the node static library and essentially create a test harness for the static library, which is
so this you're talking about actually testing Node as a dynamic library.
Yeah.
Okay, so which is different.
So now.
Oh, okay. Sorry, hang on.
Yeah. So we have a harness for that. So yeah, the original idea was just build and see that the build completes. But now that we have a harness, we also want to test it.
Right, that's one definitely that for the static and for the shared library. That's one that I definitely want to see happen.
Hang on. There are 2 issues here: testing Node as a library versus testing Node linking to shared libraries.
No, just Node as a static library.
So why have we got discussion in there about? Oh, okay. There is another issue for that, isn't there, for testing a static? Okay, sorry.
Yeah, like there's 2 different. This one was focused around building Node as a static library. There's also work to build Node as a shared library, and we really want to test both of those cases in our CI.
I think the Electron people would be ecstatic. I know they are.
That's definitely and it's important. It's certainly in our, like, we have products who use shared library as well. So that one, I guess I've been keeping a vague eye on it. It's landed and ready to have a CI job set up.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, I was thinking we have two choices on that front. We can probably do like a single platform as part of the regular regression runs, or we could try and do more platforms as a nightly run. I think I looked at it and started, and I didn't quite decide which I thought would be best, so I didn't. That's as far as I got to thinking about it.
Well, our last action item was create one job that can run and regress test on everything. I'll see that is working, then we can decide if we want to pick one out, add it to the multi-job, or run it as a nightly. My action item is just getting working.
Yeah, okay. So you're just going to get it working across platforms, and we could schedule that one easily to run nightly, which is probably a very good start.
By the way, we have a couple of ghosts that run nightly. A V8 test job that is broken for 1 million years and nobody looks at.
It's not broken on all platforms. It should be. It's been passing on the main platform for a while.
There are two scheduled jobs. One that is actually kept and working, and one that is broken and nobody cares about.
Yeah, what's that one called? It's called.
I think V8 Linux.
The test V8 Linux is one which does run nightly and also is run by the V8 team. That one I'm pretty sure passes. There's another one.
Maybe it's the other one.
The other one I think was like something like the Canary build.
No, there's Canary build.
That one never has really passed.
So that one there, I think, doesn't it actually push to Node V8 if LKGR if it passes enough?
Yes, that's the one that I set up with Targos at the last. I think if it's the right one, it's one I set up with Targos at the last one of the collaborator summits, because he wanted something that takes Node Master and V8 LKGR, puts them together. He's got a module that does that already, and then pushes it.
And it's working.
Yeah, and that was
it's working.
He's checking failures because that's how he, before he raises the update V8 to latest whatever, he makes sure it works by getting whichever teams to fix bugs on platforms V8 don't test, before it gets.
And the only reason we have V8 Canary builds coming out is because that works.
Yes.
Yeah. So what doesn't work is it's called V8 Linux Fedora 24.
What? What's that? V8 Linux. Can you post a link to it?
Maybe you could just use a different name. It sounds like it's actually being usefully used, even though it's not green.
It's only run on a daily basis, and it's broken, and I don't remember exactly why.
Yeah, we should. Raphael, could you maybe raise an issue for that so we don't forget to look at it?
Yeah, okay.
We should come back to that.
Oh, and on that note, back to the stand-up. We raised an issue to depot tools to stop being broken on the Power PCs, and they fixed it. And we had to find a hack, and now it should work. I think that was resolved completely. Yeah. Michael, did you?
Yeah, working because we had the hack in there. I removed the hack because it wasn't needed anymore, and it's still passing. So.
Okay, so do we have any litmus test to know if depot tools regresses for us?
Well, that job will break, right? That's run nightly.
That's the one thing we do have. I do know there was a discussion internally that I think was it John. One of the Johns was possibly going to talk to Google about us suggesting a test to them so that it wouldn't break on our platforms. But yeah, I think our sanity test would be that particular job for now.
Okay, so it just again, we need to be aware of that, and like that should be the usual suspect and not necessarily code breakage, because there was some runaround until we figured out it was SQL tools.
Yeah, although I'd really be hesitant to say suspect the builds first, because that's often leads to like, okay, well, we'll create an issue in the build group that gets ignored for a long time. And I think more often than not, it's actually been failures in V8 versus the other case. So I wouldn't predispose people to think it's a build job issue versus an actual thing in V8.
Okay.
Right, because you have a group of people actively changing code, and they're most likely to actually investigate something. Whereas if you sort of tell them that, oh, well, don't worry about it, most likely something else, nobody else is going to pick up and investigate that right away. So
yeah, just let them know what are the common symptoms when it's people tools or the job or the build's responsibility, and when it's code.
Yeah, if there's a signature capture from that past failure and say if it looks like this, that's a depot tools thing, then that's a good idea.
Great.
Okay. So better press on. Now the next one on the agenda is for Rod to walk us through the Cloudflare setup. Rod, is that something we should? How long would that take?
Not long at all.
Cool. Should we do it?
Now. Okay.
If it's convenient.
Sure. Just let me log in here, and I can actually tell you about some concerns that an intrepid fixer might be able to resolve for us. How do we get in? Okay.
Do you want to share your?
Yep.
Screen?
Let me. Where's the share screen button?
It's on the left, like a green arrow. It's called screen share.
There it is. Okay.
Well hidden.
Okay, let's have some inception going on here for a second. Okay, there we all are. Say hello to yourself. Okay, you can see that now?
Yep.
Okay, so I'll do this really quickly, but stop me, interrupt me if you want to dive into anything quickly, anything deeply. I think I have I've got another meeting coming up soon, so I can't take too long. So we've got IOJS and Node.js in here. IOJS is on the free plan. Node.js is on the business plan. We have our Node.js account is actually it's free, provided by Cloudflare, and it is partly enterprise as well because we do get some enterprise features. So it's a little bit mixed. And we also have a contact directly into Cloudflare that we can talk to, and I presume we can also use their support mechanism if we need to as well. But in the past, I've just emailed directly to our guy there, and I can share those contact details with anyone that wants them. Don't really want to list some of these contacts with people.
I think maybe Joe added those to the secrets repo.
Oh, okay, that's good. Yeah, I wouldn't want it to be public for some of these contacts because we don't want to. Yeah, we don't want to overload them with public people coming and talking. But anyway, I'll go into the Node.js one.
One other thought is we also have build private, so it's potential that we could put stuff there if we want it to be like more broadly available to the build team, but not public.
True. Although I think build test has pretty much got a whole build team, so we could put stuff in there.
Right.
Anyway, so here's our Node.js setup. Security is off. They pinged us about this, wanting to turn it on, but we don't because we just statically host. There's nothing we do that's interactive. We don't need their full security level. We're protected from DDoS and that kind of stuff, but aside from that, there's not that much we can make use of. Although, if anyone wants to investigate what they make use of and wants to advise otherwise, you're welcome to do so. But both Johan and I had a chat about this just recently and decided that this made sense. We serve our SSL directly from them. Let's have a dive into, let's go to DNS. This is where a lot of activity takes place. Our DNS setup, you can see down here, these icons are, we go through Cloudflare for anything that's got this icon. Otherwise, it's just direct. So these, some of these are historical, actually. CentOS can be removed. Some of these are really historical and need to be removed. But you can see that only a few sites actually go through Cloudflare. Most of them are CNAMEs for the same server. Not live, please ignore. Don't go to that one because I don't know what that is. And MX, there's nothing particularly interesting in there. Crypto, I think we put out.
When we put something on there, do we have to do anything other than flicking the switch, or?
No, it's actually really easily. If for instance, like, let's take an easy one like benchmarking. If we host it somewhere and we're serving content and we have it in our DNS, you just literally turn, like, I can turn that off. Now benchmarking's direct, it'll resolve direct. And now it'll, like, it's that easy.
And to send in the first place that we added that entry, did we have to do something anywhere else, or is it that they can act on our
it's no, that's it. So they are our DNS provider. So any DNS lookups go through Cloudflare. So it's just that simple. As long as the server is responding to that host name, and we've got our Nginx config to do that, then we can just turn this on and it just bypasses. It's that easy. It's actually a really sweet system for that. Crypto is that's our SSL certificate. We've got our wildcard in there, and this goes back to that discussion about moving to Let's Encrypt. The other option, I think we could just use Cloudflare's own certificates. That's another option we could use, but then we would have to proxy through them for everything we want to serve HTTPS. So, and for now, I think we've got 2 years on the Node.js.org wildcard. We don't have HTTP strict on yet, but that's a discussion. We want to move to that. We just need to make sure we wean people off the downloads directory that's not HTTP, not strict. That's the only thing outstanding. Look, everything else is pretty standard in there. Firewall, I don't think is there anything in there. I think the only thing we turned on in firewall, all these things are automatic. The only thing we turned on in here was access via Tor. So I think that automatically Tor browser access is disabled, but we turned that back on because people were complaining, and I think that's legitimate. Like, we're not doing anything. You can't really do anything nefarious through our website through Tor, so it wasn't a big deal. Not that. Speed. Okay. We don't turn on any of their source munging stuff, so we don't, like, we do all that on our own server. Is there anything on here? No, we don't actually do anything in their speed stuff. Caching is where stuff gets interesting. So we do try and do as aggressive caching as possible. We default to 4 hours on browser cache, and we do manual purges of edge caches when we update the content on the server. We have a script that does that via their API. So we have these rules in here. It's 4 hours on the browser, and we've got some custom rules for different things. aside from that, we're using standard stuff. Always on. This is something we need to fix. Always online is turned on. It doesn't actually work. It's never worked, and it's also very difficult to test because it means taking down our stuff to test it. And I'll show you why that may be the case, because it's all in this page rules section. We've got a bunch of page rules that do customized things for different downloads. So for our binaries, we've got all these rules that customize the defaults. So things like we try to do always online for our binaries, but I think something else in here conflicts with that. So cache level bypass is the biggest thing we do right now that we need to migrate off. So what happens with these is all of these things here, they have a bypass on them. So anytime you request any of these resources, they go through Cloudflare, all of their edge locations, to our server. There's no caching going on. The ideal was that we would do that, but we'd still have always online. So if our server went off, they'd still be serving it, but that doesn't work. The true ideal is to stop doing that completely, stop bypassing it, and let Cloudflare serve them from their edge locations. The reason we are doing this still is because we are collecting log files and still processing log files for our metrics. So we're in this halfway state that I think most of us are aware of, that we're collecting logs from Cloudflare's API. So in theory, we should be able to use that and stop bypassing and collecting our own logs. But I don't have high level of confidence that we're doing that in a robust enough way. And we also don't have it wired up properly to spit out to our metrics stuff. So metrics is... this stuff still comes from our Nginx logs. And it needs to come from our Cloudflare logs plus historical Nginx. So that's not fully done yet. So once that's done, we can remove all these rules and actually have always on, in theory, working. Aside from that, we've got some custom rules for different content. I don't know why we're doing CSS differently. I guess it's edge location, TTL, 4 hours. We could actually extend that. That's another interesting thing about edge locations, is because we manually purge via their API whenever the website gets updated. We say purge everything when the website gets updated, and we say that again whenever the binaries get updated. So we could actually extend that right out, to a month, and then just assume that our purging works. And then their edge locations would, and if we never updated anything, they'd just stay on there. So that's an interesting place to poke around if you're in there. Network, we've got IPv6 working. Occasionally we get complaints. We don't have a good way of automatically testing that's working, and I don't have IPv6 set up on my host, so it's poking in the dark for me. Nothing else in there that's interesting. Traffic, I think, has got this interesting stuff, which is load balancing, that I think you guys want to know more about. So we have load balancing set up. This is an enterprise feature that we've been given access to. So we have it set up for Node.js.org, and it's served by 2 pools, and the pools have got 1 host each. So how that works is we have them ordered. We serve primarily from our DigitalOcean server, and you can see it's got our DigitalOcean server address in there, and then we've got a secondary host on Joyent that we async from regularly from our DigitalOcean server. So we can you can take that offline, and it still serves just fine. But mostly it just serves from DigitalOcean. We very rarely have to serve from backup. And then we've got these really basic health checks that happen regularly. And I mean, this works really nicely. Since we've turned this on, I don't think we've had any downtime from Node.js.org. This has been the biggest leap forward in terms of our availability. So this is a great feature. So we could potentially turn that on for other subdomains, I guess. So like benchmarking and all the rest of them. I guess they're not turned on. They're not configured properly yet, but we could do that if we were concerned enough. Again, though, that whole always online feature should actually negate the need for doing much of this anyway, because we're just doing static content. And if always online worked, then we wouldn't need to worry so much about this. Aside from that, I don't think there's anything else in here that we don't have anything. We don't have anything customized here. We don't have WAF enabled or any special error pages because we just don't serve anything. We don't do any interactive work yet. So that's it. Is there any questions that anyone wants me to dive into specifically there?
What's the biggest, like, if something's not working, how do you go about, like, investigating or troubleshooting?
I guess it depends on what's not working. I think the biggest complexity in here that I would go to first is that load balancing, because it's everything else has been working from day one. Like all those page rules, they've just been set and they just work. Everything else is pretty stable. This load balancing stuff is the newest, and it's the one we've had the most trouble with. So I would be going in here and having a look at health. They do have an API that you can dig more into this about that was very interesting. And if you have the API key, then you can query this stuff, and it's really cool because you can actually look at the individual edge locations and see what's not working. So there's some stuff in here. I think I posted an example of this in that issue where things weren't working from Dallas. I actually posted some curl scripting in there just as a record for me, but anyone else that wanted to do it. So load balancer pools, so you can yeah.
I mean, I guess another way of asking the question, has there ever been something where it's not, people reporting they can't access the sites, and it's been something we've needed to do through this UI versus contacting Cloudflare to...
I don't have a good example of that other than the latest thing with the Dallas stuff, and so that's where this came in handy. But that was after I contacted our guy there, and he pointed me to this, which I wasn't aware of. But I suspect that there's a lot of stuff in this API that is going to give us really rich information if we ever need to dig into it. So I would suggest anyone that wants to be in a position to debug this should get themselves set up to be able to run these kinds of queries. And what you'll need is the auth email and the auth key, and those are in the Cloudflare account if you can log in. And I think they're actually in the secret stock as well, so you can just grab them from there.
But I guess it's so you're saying this would let us see what kind of outages they're having, or is it that we've misconfigured something?
So the interesting thing about this in that case is it reported back that they were having trouble accessing even making a TCP connection to our servers, both our primary and secondary, from Dallas, which obviously is not our problem. That's their problem because everything else was fine. And both servers, doesn't make sense. So it's their problem. But in theory, you could use that information to say, okay, well, we have trouble. Like you could trace it back then to perhaps DigitalOcean. And perhaps somebody is getting stale content. That's happened before. And you might have to dig into has the cache been cleaned? You can clean the cache. We've got a script on our web server that will do it, or you can come in here, I think, and you can do a purge. Let's purge individual files, or you can purge everything. You could purge everything from here. I think Joao did that the other day when we were doing that Dallas problem. And this is not a huge cost to us to do that because we do it so regularly anyway. And everything warms back up pretty quickly. So that's one way of doing things if you've got stale content. But then you'd want to dig into why they had stale content, because in theory, no one should have stale content. But it could be because we're either not purging automatically properly, or we're serving from our backup server and it's not being synchronized properly or in quick enough time. So you'd want to go in and look at that. So go and look at the health of if this is not healthy, then we've got a problem. But if this is not serving good content, then we've got another problem. I think we discovered during that latest thing with Dallas that we had a cron job that wasn't actually running properly, which doesn't sound right to me, but apparently Joao found that.
A cron, do you remember a cron job that does what? Or
yeah, it was. So we've started migrating from pure cron to using systemd timed jobs. So systemd, like everything else, is starting to subsume everything. Can do these timed jobs, and they're actually pretty nice. And I think Johan had written that and put it in the server, but it wasn't enabled. And I think that was just an rsync to rsync web content from DigitalOcean across to the joint server. That's the story. I'm surprised that it lasted that long, not actually being enabled. But apparently, yeah, if in that issue on the Dallas thing and on our build repo, you can see some details in there between Joao and Johan.
okay, so you could see how that not running could result in stale content because whenever the joint serve stuff, it would serve potentially out of date stuff.
And if you want to do this manually, like you could take take that IP address, stick it in your etc hosts file, and for Node.js.org, and then fire up your web browser to Node.js.org, and you should be getting content from that server, and it should be working. Another thing that I discovered during that thing was that I hadn't updated the new SSL certificate on our Joyent server. So doing that, I got a certificate error. So that's another thing you can think about doing, is actually bypassing Cloudflare manually by putting these in your etc hosts.
So which are these machines in the inventory, Ansible inventory?
Yes. They are. They're under the name Infra. So let me see.
Okay, DigitalOcean Debian. So there's a joint one which is called Backup, and then there's a Debian one called www or Collector.
So you need to look in the infra section, and the DigitalOcean has. You'll see the aliases. There's one called www. That's the primary server.
Right.
Although that IP address doesn't match. It doesn't. Something wonky there. And then the other one is, that might actually need to be updated. The other one is Joyent. I think we're using unencrypted. That's the one, the server there. IP address matches that one. So yeah, the second Joyent host in infra is that one. But,
So meanwhile, just to get people's imagination running, Cloudflare has a new feature where you can run serverless lambdas on the edge locations.
they're not true lambdas though.
And do all sorts of cool stuff. Anybody's watching and has an idea. It's kind of interesting.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
I don't think so. Actually, our inventory doesn't include the proper host for www. It's got an old host name in there, and I'm not sure why. I'm going to push that to master now on build.
Right. Is there anything else for this one? No. Right, we're running a bit long, so we've still got a couple more things to do. So do you want to stop or just try and push through it and people can up if they have to? Or want to?
What are the things left on our agenda? Are any of the merged?
Reasonably quick. So there's the update. Well, the next one is update Intel text and providers list. I'm not sure why it's on the agenda. I guess to make sure no one has an issue with it. I think everyone who commented on the issue. This is 912. Yeah, so Michael and myself and Yoao commented, and Raphael. So,
yeah, I guess that one is like, how markety do we want to let people be?
yeah. I'm fine with the one sentence plus link. That seems like a good balance.
Yeah, I still wonder if we'll ever get into a position where, you know, two people want to claim the same thing.
I mean, they can, right?
That's why you put it in quotes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's their line. If they want to say the same thing, that's like, you know, their advertising.
Yeah, I mean, if we think it actually is going to make them more likely to contribute, then I'm not opposed. I'd just be if we don't think that they're going to care enough to make a difference, the neutral language is my preference. But I don't really have strong feelings.
So, out of interest, Rod, someone commented on this issue, MENEPIE, like MENEPIE. Do you know if that's someone who's related to this discussion or just someone?
Sorry, I need to extract myself from here and go into another meeting in a second. But let me just 912. I don't recognize that name, and they don't have any information in there. So
Okay, so maybe it's just a bystander. Okay, anyway, so that seems like we should get back to GitHub unless anyone has any strong feelings. Cool, so that is done. GC49 on CentOS 6. I'm not sure if there's anything left to discuss here.
There's one issue. We have a 32-bit native machine doing release, which shouldn't be updated. We don't have a 32-bit machine doing testing, so we're kind of like we don't have a parity. Other than that, I think we converged on that issue.
Right, but if we can catch our platform issues on the 64-bit version and 32-bit specific issues on Ubuntu or some other OS distro,
that was the conversion that we're gonna test general Linux on Ubuntu, and that CentOS 6 32-bit is nice to have. Just we need to remember not to update the 32-bit CentOS 6 that is in release.
Right. Okay. Cool.
I have to leave, folks. I'm sorry. I know this discussion is important, but got to go.
See you next time. Okay, and in that case, we'll probably just maybe leave that one, just take it back to, I don't know if there's anything else to say on that. One last one, 941. Just kind of snuck it in right for the meeting. So I was talking to Raphael, actually, and we both had the same sort of feeling that it'd be nice to get people involved, to make it easy for people to get involved with the build working group. Kind of in the same way that people can just join, you know, with this automation group, people can just join and start doing stuff straight away. Especially if we're moving towards a things are stored in code and you can put PRs kind of thing, as opposed to a people are manually compiled for machines and SSH. The more we can automate things, the easier it is for it to have a wider membership. So, proposal would be to do what we did with the LTS, no, the release working group, and to have an overall team who don't have any magic powers, but obviously have access to the repo and can review PRs and things, and then have sub-teams. So we already have an infra and a release sub-team, one which have a test sub-team as well that has access to the test machines. And then, yeah, we can then, you know, the whole question of, oh, can we add this person to the working group becomes a non-issue. So, quick thoughts?
Yeah, could I chime in?
Yes, Michael, you're on mute, so maybe after Evan.
Okay, sorry. So yeah, just a suggestion is to perhaps have like some walkthroughs on how build is built up to help people get started with it, and perhaps it would be easier to contribute in the long term.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, we've been trying to start writing some of this stuff down as an access, because I mean, it took me quite a long time to work out who has what access to things. But yeah, there's definitely a lot more we could do there. So, Michael, you're still on mute. Yep.
Yeah, so I guess I was just saying, I think it's a very good idea. I didn't quite remember that everybody we onboarded necessarily got access to tests. Have we always done that?
Since I've been.
Okay. But yeah, no, I 100% think we should be able to bring on people to the build working group without having to, give the first level of access necessarily until it's needed, right?
Yeah. Because I think moving forward, we don't want people to have to keep SSHing into test machines, right? We'd like to have it smooth enough that you can either run an Ansible job or you can do some, you have some other way that means you can do it through PRs and issues like everything else in the org.
Yeah, I don't think we'll ever be able to completely get away from stuff. But yeah, I think we want to welcome people into the working group to help in whatever way, and then work, avoid that being a blocker for sure.
And yeah, long term, I mean, a lot of the work is automation work, the same sort of stuff the automation team is looking at now. So long term, a lot of that stuff might tie together. I mean, yeah, it's mostly on servers as opposed to people's own machines, but if we end up with pipelines and things, that's going to become quite an arbitrary difference. So, cool.
Yeah, so there's just a tiny, bureaucratic thing that permissions to the secrets is tied to membership in the repo. So we need to do a sort of team inversion,
yes,
only a sub-team of the build can automatically get access to the secrets.
Yep.
Even though it's encrypted, etc.
We'd have to work that out, but yeah.
Yeah, we do have build private, which doesn't really have anything too sensitive, but it's the same thing. Yeah, when we add people to the team, they get access to it. So.
Yeah. So great. I'm happy because I was kind of impressed at. Although Rod said before Gibson's talk that people just love this sort of thing, it's really true. A lot of people are very interested in DevOps things and automation and scripts around the tooling around this, and it's great to have more hands and enthusiasm.
Yeah, definitely.
Absolutely.
Great.
Cool. So, right, any questions from anyone at all? If anyone is listening, you can comment on the issue or post an IRC. Raphael, as ever, very happy on IRC. Not.
I don't see anything in IRC.
Okay.
I'll check anybody in YouTube. No, nothing. Wait. No, just general. Somebody said thank you. Somebody's asking, what are we talking about? No direct questions.
Cool. Okay. In that case, I think we'll wrap up for this time. Thanks for joining. Thanks, Evan, for pitching in. Feel free to join in any time, obviously. Time is always a limiting factor. Cool. See you guys in 3 weeks' time.
Yep. Talk to y'all later.
Cheers.
Bye.